3,000 wanted persons sent invitations to a party and a football match, but they didn't know that the offer to see the Washington Redskins in action had come from the police department.
They're queuing for a free ticket to watch the Redskins football team, a chance few Washington people could resist, which is exactly what the local police were banking on.
The forces combined early today to pull off an unusual sting operation. It made the promise of free Redskins tickets.
The smiling lady gently steering this man along the corridor is a policewoman. So are the cheerleaders.
Here we go, Super Bowl! Here we go!
Here's your lucky day. You don't even know it, do you?
Remember one thing, we're cops and we have to smile today. We don't normally smile at bandits. Today we have to smile. We have to kill them with smiles.
Only the grand prize winners will be allowed to come this way, 25 at a time.
People we got coming. We have 2 of the top 10 fugitives here in D.C.
During the 1980s, the Redskins were so good that people were willing to go to jail to get tickets to see them play live. Well, sorta. On December 15, 1985, a legendary FBI sting operation took place in Washington, D.C. at the Washington Convention Center, where FBI marshals and police officers had been since 5:30 a.m., decorating and dressing up for one hell of a charade later that day. Deemed Operation Flagship, the plan was to send out invitations to 3,000 known fugitives to claim 2 free tickets to an upcoming Washington Redskins football game just before the playoffs. The FBI had hoped that the success of the Redskins and the rarity of tickets for RFK Stadium would lure DC fugitives safely into custody. And it worked. Out of the 3,000 invitations sent, 167 were accepted, who were all arrested without incident. 2 days after the operation, an editorial by the Washington Post enumerated the criminal records of the arrested fugitives. 15 warrants for assault, 5 for robbery, 6 for burglary, 4 for escape, 19 for bond default or bail violation, 18 for narcotics violations, 59 for probation or parole violation, and 41 for a variety of charges, from rape to arson to forgery. The total cost for Operation Flagship amounted to $22,100, or approximately $218.81 per arrest. In comparison, U.S. Marshal Services typically spend an average of $1,295 per arrest in 1985. Considering the cost of the operation and the nonviolent arrest of all that attended, Operation Flagship is often considered one of the most successful sting operations in history, if not one of the most interesting. So let's go back to the 1980s and learn more about Operation Flagship. From 1981 to 1986, the U.S. Marshals Services conducted a series of 9 operations called Fugitive Investigative Strike Team Operations, aka FIST, with the aim of capturing thousands of wanted fugitives in the United States. One tactic that the U.S. Marshals used to lure fugitives in were get-something-for-nothing schemes, which were often quite successful. Especially in 1984, when U.S. Marshals conducted FIST 7, a large-scale operation spanning over 2 months in 8 states that resulted in the arrest of 3,309 fugitives. In New York City, fugitives were sent a notice from the fictitious Brooklyn Bridge Delivery Service to pick up their valuable packages. In Buffalo, fugitives were notified that they had won between $250 and $10,000 in a lottery. In Hartford, Connecticut, younger fugitives were notified that they had won 2 free tickets to a Boy George concert, including dinner for 2 and the use of a limousine. And in all cases, the fugitives were arrested when they tried to claim the packages or prizes at the specified locations. Fast forward to 1985, 1 month before the operation, Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal Tobias P. Roche, with the approval of U.S. Marshal Herbert M. Rutherford III, instructed Deputy U.S. Marshals and Fugitive Task Force members of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department to mail invitations to the last known addresses of approximately 3,000 wanted persons. All the invitations were sent from the fictitious firm Flagship International Sports Television, which shares the same acronym with Fugitive Investigative Strike Team. The recipients were told that as part of the firm's promotional offer, they had won 2 complimentary tickets to the Redskins-Bengals game, and that they were invited to a pregame brunch at the Washington Convention Center the morning of December 15, 1985. The recipients were also told that they could enter a raffle draw to win 10 season tickets for the Washington Redskins, and the grand prize of a week-long, all-expenses-paid trip to New Orleans to watch Super Bowl 20. On the morning of the operation, marshals and police officers arrive at 5:30 a.m. To minimize risk, the planners set up 2 separate areas in the convention center. one area to greet the guests, and another area where they could separate the fugitives in a smaller batch to make the arrests. Although the invitations indicated guests should arrive at 9 a.m., many of the excited guests arrived as early as 8 a.m. To make the whole scene more believable, undercover officers carried balloons, sang Redskins cheers, served buffet brunch, and played videos from the Redskins' first Super Bowl win on the convention center screens. Officers dressed as maintenance workers and ushers. One marshal even wore a Redskins war bonnet, while another wore a knockoff San Diego chicken suit to parade around the convention center while also monitoring if the fugitives were becoming suspicious. Every officer involved carried a concealed firearm. When the lucky winners arrived at the Washington Convention Center, deputy marshals posing as Flagship International employees checked their IDs and verified their identities through phone calls with backroom staff. Depending on their crime, they would be given a coded name tag with code words such as double winner.
We have a double winner. Be advised.
Which was used to identify fugitives that were considered especially dangerous. Female officers disguised as cheerleaders were used to discreetly frisk the fugitives for concealed weapons by offering hugs and putting their arms around their waists. When the time was right, Louis McKinney, the chief of enforcement operations for the U.S. Marshals, would grab approximately 10 to 20 people and lead them to an auditorium where they would listen to a few remarks before receiving their prizes. And upon mentioning the word surprise, 25 members of the Special Operations Group wearing tactical gear would storm the auditorium and quickly surround the fugitives. They were then handcuffed and escorted outside to awaiting buses. And of the 167 charged, 101 fugitives were arrested by the end of the operation. The funny thing is, the FBI knew that their plan was so good that they even left various clues. For example, the invitation letters sent by the marshals were signed by I. Michael Detnall, which, when rearranged, is I'm wanted. And when the fugitives called the specific telephone number to confirm their attendance, an operator would redirect them to Flagship's business manager, Marcus Cran, or NARC spelled backwards.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cran.
This operation involved 6 weeks of training, including 3 dress rehearsals so that the undercover officers could acclimate to their roles. They even went so far as to bring in deputies from outside Washington, D.C., as the planners feared that some of the fugitives might recognize the local marshals who had guarded them in courtrooms or had taken them to jail. And with all the planning set in place, the team of 166 marshals and police officers executed perfectly. In fact, they executed Operation Flagship so well that the operation is still being studied to this day by law enforcement agencies all around the world who are looking to get an edge on criminals who are evading capture. In fact, it's even influenced pop culture. M. Night Shyamalan's movie Trap is said to be based on the operation. It also inspired a scene in the 1989 film Sea of Love starring Al Pacino, where in the film, the New York PD stages a similar sting operation, luring 45 wanted criminals with outstanding warrants to a ballroom, where they were told that they could have breakfast with the members of the New York Yankees. But once inside, Detective Frank Keller, played by Pacino, informed the criminals that they were under arrest, as police officers wearing Yankee shirts flood into the ballroom. Although CBS and the LA Times were specifically invited by the marshals to document and publicize the operation, there is not much footage on the internet. And if it wasn't for a YouTube video with about 40,000 views from 10 years ago titled VTS 011, I probably wouldn't have any content to share with you guys. But thankfully, with that, along with an NFL Films documentary done 8 years ago that was very interesting and included a ton of interviews, I would recommend you go watch that. I was able to put together this video. So shout out to West 57th Productions and the YouTube channel that posted their video. And popping up right now is a video that YouTube thinks you're really going to like, so let's click it and find out if YouTube is correct.